Welcome to Harvard Referencing, brought to you by Student Development and the Study Skills Service. This session will help you to evaluate where referencing is necessary, insert references in the text, identify some of the information needed for the reference list, the types of sources you'll be dealing with, books, databases, journals, the internet, postgraduate dissertations or thesis, and so on, government and company records, historical records, etc., etc. On this page, you see example 1 on the left and example 2 on the right. Example 1 is poor practice. It's not great standard. Avoid it. Example 2 reads thus. According to Aura 1965, many experimental studies may be biased simply because the examples used are volunteers. A further common sampling bias is the student. It is estimated that 3/4 of research studies are conducted on students. Valentine, 1992, page 87. Furthermore, Sears, 1986, page 33, showed that 74% of participants used in 4 of the most significant US research journals were undergraduate students. Therefore, to call many of the participants volunteers is misleading. Compare both examples 1 and 2, and note how the author of example 2 acknowledges the work or contribution of others. There are different things going on. Aura 1965, at the top of example 2, is a summary. This is a summary reference. It makes no specific use to technicalities written by Aura in 1965, but it alludes to the general concept of that paper, book, whatever the publication was. However, the other two, Valentine and Sears, the other two references that is, they are what we call paraphrases. They're not direct quotations, they are direct paraphrases of valuable information. And as a general rule, that's when we deal with quantifiable data, technicalities, or things that belong to an original source. Therefore, to calculate that 3/4 of research studies and so on are conducted on students, according to Valentine 1992, Valentine, in 1992, on page 87, published work that calculated an entity, a quantity of research students and so on. That is quantifiable data, that's technical, that is intellectual property that belongs to Valentine from 1992 and is found on page 87, as I repeat. A very similar thing as occurs with Sears in 1986, page 33, dealing with 74% of participants. This is intellectual property. It belongs to someone else. It is a source material. It is source that belongs to another author. Therefore, that author needs to be credited for it. The student didn't suddenly acquire this information. They read it from somewhere. This is part of the learning process. You need to attribute where you find your information from, where it came from, and who published it, and in what year. And when you paraphrase, you need a page number. Similar to a quote, but not exactly the same. Referencing benefits you because it shows your engagement with the subject, your research capabilities, and demonstrates academic integrity. It improves your grades and prevents accusations of plagiarism. Plagiarism is when you take the work or ideas of others and represent them as your own. Turnitin. Some courses use it, others don't. A vast number at the University of South Wales do use Turnitin. It is an electronic plagiarism detection system used when submitting assessments through Blackboard. Guides on Turnitin can be found at the following URL shown on the screen. It's advisable to find out from your lecturer whether you are able to use Turnitin prior to a deadline. There are 3 ways to use sources within written work: quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Paraphrasing and summarizing, I've already given examples of Sears and Aura, for example. They're different types of summarizing or paraphrasing, but quoting we haven't looked at in too much detail. Quoting is when you copy the original and place the text in quotation marks. Paraphrasing is where you use your own words to express specific detailed information on a single issue. It has a different sentence structure and word choice to the original, but maintains the original meaning. Summarizing, however, is slightly different. It's when you put the main ideas, remember Aura 1964 in the example given on a few slides ago, including only an overview of the most relevant information when you summarize. You must use considerably less words than the original. Well, you don't have to, but it's common that you would use less words than the original. A balance between those, between quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing, is the elixir. That is the actual goal, really. You don't need to have more than one and less of the other. It's nice to have a healthy balance between quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. However, paraphrasing and summarizing are the most common. Quoting now and then is more appropriate, but if you quote consistently or perhaps incessantly, that may discourage your lecturer. A healthy balance between quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing is necessary. The top passage, the original passage is shown at the top of this slide. The second paragraph is a plagiarized version. It's too similar to the original, so it's unacceptable. And then a legitimate paraphrase is second from bottom, and it shows you a reasonable way of using new vocabulary to express the original meaning found in the original source. An acceptable summary, if you notice, is only one sentence long. I'm going to read it. Students should take just a few notes in direct quotation from sources, Leicester 2010. That's a generalized view, therefore no page number is necessary. However, it's still a general view pertaining to Leicester, who published in 2010, and Leicester is credited thereby. It's important that you understand that paraphrases and quotations will invariably show a page number. Plagiarism involves failing to express the information in your own way, failing to acknowledge where the information came from originally. You must reference when you use any of the information that does not originate with you, and this includes factual information, theories, visual material, or you may need to support your own ideas. It gives weight to an argument and it provides a record of your research. In-text referencing is shown on the left. Reference list is shown on the right. Interpreters will use the information you text in the reference. This is where you credit and you get a balance of your different sources. The reference list gives enough detail so that someone else can find the same source of information. Both components have to be included in most assignments. First component of in-text reference. Referencing in the text can occur at different positions, as you can see. Look at the red marks. According to Jones 2010, running is the best form of exercise. This is a summary. Jones 2010, page 15, maintains that the most hurdle coaches share the opinion that, and it goes on. It talks on and carries on and writes on, and it says the same lead leg throughout the race. I'm looking towards the end of the sentence. That's a paraphrase. We know that's a paraphrase because it talks about technical information. You can see that where it refers to a 400-meter race in the center of that short passage. And because it's a paraphrase, we write the page number. So thereby you see Jones 2010, page 15. It is a paraphrase. It uses technical information. A quotation shown beneath it, Jones 2010, page 17, argues that running daily, the quotation begins, soothes. Jones 2010, page 17, argues that running daily, and the quote begins, soothes mind, body, and soul. End quotation. At the end of the sentence, or at the beginning of the sentence, you can use your reference. That takes a bit of skill. Look at, but it is possible to express it in that way. Look at what the professionals are doing. Look at what your source material says, the source material that you use to compose your assignment. Here's an example of how to vary and connect your various sources and ideas and perspectives found in the source. For example, as X points out, or according to X, there are more. You need to take your time to read this. Perhaps pause the slide in your own time. Dealing with quotes. The example on the left is how you might intertwine a very short quote, a brief quote, and the example on the right, at the bottom right, is how you would deal with quotes that are longer than 3 lines. So 3 lines or more, you should be on the next line and indented. They should be single-spaced, as in the line should be single-spaced, and no quotation marks are needed. However, that's not the case when you're dealing with smaller quotations. If you look at the example on the left, it says, illegal drug use remains a key problem. Brown 2009, page 10, draws attention to the proactive nature of drug investigations, highlighting their employment of an array of covert investigative techniques. An array of covert investigative techniques is a very short, brief quote. That's quite a skillful way of utilising the work of other people. However, when it's much larger, as shown on the right-hand side, Dubois et al. 2008, page 128, points out, and it shows you a quotation that is rather large, and it's thereby important, it's therefore very important, that if you are going to use a large quotation, you need to indent it. It has significantly narrower line spacing, as in point 1, single-spaced. Most dissertations or essays are spaced with 1.5. Check with your course and your handbooks available from your lecturers or perhaps published on Blackboard, but check with the formal documentation published with your course. However, this is the standard, and this is what we normally do. Multiple authors. When you're dealing with 2 or 3 authors, you need to present them in a particular way. So, for example, according to Dexter and Walsh, 1995, Brown, Johns, and Williams, 2015, highlights. There are 2 different examples there. Dexter and Walsh, 95. That's how you might present them if you're using them in your text, in text. Or Alternatively, Brown, Johns and Williams 2015 highlight. These are examples. When you deal with further higher number of authors, more than 3 authors, you would do it in the following way. This was indicated in a study by Huxley et al. 2007. Now, et al. Is a bit confusing. What it means is "and others," stands for et alia, and you will actually see there's a full stop occurring after the al in et al. However, that isn't actually used. It's not behaving like a full stop, really. It's just a signature. It's just a little signal to the reader that clearly this is an abbreviation of a formal Latin phrase, however, or a Latin expression. And the real full stop occurs after the date, as you'll see. That's a pedant observation. It's a really irritating situation for a student to be in, because it means that sometimes it's a very easy mistake to forget the correct punctuation around et al. If you show the technique shown on screen, you will be correct. To recap on the differences, if you're using your own words to express a summary of someone else's information, you need to state the author's family name and the year, e.g. Jones 08 or Jones 2008. If you're using your own words to paraphrase someone else's information, you need to state the author's family name, the year, and the page number, e.g. Jones 2008 page 48 or Jones 2008 page 48 again. You'll notice that Jones 2008 it's bracketed around the date and the page number. However, in the latter example, the brackets surround the author, the date, and the page number altogether. We could deal with that at a different time, but essentially all that means is when the date. If you're using your own words to paraphrase someone else's information, you need to state the author's family name and the year and the page number, as shown below. If you're using someone else's words, a direct quotation, you need to state the author's family name and the year and the page number. Very similar format when you're quoting or paraphrasing. And the only thing that will denote it quite obviously are those visual signals, the punctuation, whether you're using quotation marks or whether you are using an indentation and single line spacing, depending on the length of the quote. Okay, secondary referencing. This is quite common. Fashion students in particular, or students in art and design, will find, or in the creative industries, will most definitely come across secondary reference frequently. And that's because by nature, many humanity-based subjects do share concepts, and schools of thought will be based upon a group collective opinion, an idea, a reaction, a response to a particular theme. That may be methodological, it could be ideological, it could be an artistic genre, feeling, a school of thought. For example, the Bloomsbury literary group, an artistic group of the early 20th century, they're a prime example of how artists and writers influence one another. And so it is not uncommon for the subjectivity to include multiple opinions within a school of thought. Thereby, secondary referencing is quite common in the arts, whether you're a fashion designer, an interior designer, a musician, or an author, or something else. The humanities will quite often, not always, it's something you should be cautious of, but it's certainly not unknown to have a frequent level of secondary referencing when you're reading and researching for a dissertation or an essay. Here's an example of how you might do it. Secondary referencing, by the way, occurs in multiple genres, but this is how you might do it. McDougall 09 maintains that many of the injuries experienced by amateur runners can be attributed to training shoes which have altered natural running style, cited in Kirk 05, page 5. McDougall 09 maintains that many of the injuries experienced by amateur runners can be attributed to training shoes which have altered natural running styles, cited in Kirk 2005, page 5. Or, McDougall 09, as cited in Kirk 2015, page 5, maintains that many of the injuries experienced by amateur runners can be attributed to training shoes which have altered natural running style. It says the same thing. However, the position of the source occurs in a different way. In the first example, it's the front and at the end of the sentence, and then in the second example, the secondary source and the primary source are positioned together. McDougall 09 as cited in Cook 05. I personally would prefer the latter because it's a bit more organised. However, if you're dealing with a lot of secondary references, it may be preferable for you to get a balance. Seek a nice balance. It may be preferable for you to seek a balance. Visual sources are dealt with in this way. This is quite common for design-based subjects. Figure 1, Figure 2, Figure 3, Figure 4, and so on, all the way throughout your assignment. Forks Break is the name of the photograph, and the Cowan Rider 728 published this in 2007. I'm guessing it's a social media handle. Table of results, Table 3, Table of results, Peters 15, page 37. That's within brackets, and that's how you would set up a table of results. And it might be quite common if you were a designer and you were dealing with quantities and calculations and costs, cost benefit perhaps of a production and so on. So this is how you arrange a table, and shown on the right, and of images are shown as displayed on the left. We're not going to do the exercise. I'm going to pause it. You're going to have to do that in your own time. Second component to the reference list. This is the reference list. Second component of referencing, the reference list. Pay attention to the order, the formatting, and the sequence. Here is an example. The order is the whole list is always in alphabetical order of the reference list, from the first word, author's family name, or author group. Quite often in reference lists, students will forget to put the author's family name first, and it can interfere with the order of your reference list. Be aware of it. Formatting: some words are italicized, not all, some. Commas, full stops, colons, brackets, and single inverted commas are used at specific times in various forms, and they are crucial because they give signals to your lecturers when they're reading your work. It helps them decipher useful information. The sequence, the contents needed for a completed list source are sequenced in a specific way, depending on the type of source. The sequence is important. Here's an example. Burns, T, and Simfield, S, 2003, Essential Study Skills, The Complete Guide to Success at University, published in London and Sage. Incidentally, London is clearly the place of publication, and Sage are the publishers. If you're not sure, and there are multiple sources of if you're not sure about the place of publication because it's published in New York, Tokyo, Hamburg, and so on, all simultaneously, the rule is you use the location that's nearest to your place, nearest to your institution. So if you're studying in Oxford, Cambridge, Swansea, Manchester, Edinburgh, wherever, you would publish in those cities if the location of the publication was there. So the place that you select is always the location that is nearest to your place of study. Author and family name comes first, then the initial, then the year of publication, then the full title, italicized, the complete guide to success, etc. That's part of the title, place of publication, and then the publisher. Here are some examples: books, journals, websites, and YouTube. YouTube not too much, but books, journals, and websites, you will certainly use those on a frequent basis. You'll notice that the punctuation is absolutely imperative. Really successful books will have multiple reprints, so get used to how to format editions. You'll notice here we've got the essential evidence, for example, second edition. And second edition is written in quite an archaic form, but at the same time it's a contraction, and the contraction is signalled by the full stop. So it's important that you see that, and if you're not sure, refer to this slide, refer to the Harvard referencing guide, and also seek support through a one-to-one study skills email appointment, and we can help you. We're not going to do this exercise because you don't have time. I'm just going to show you what it looks like and with the corrections next to them. Okay, Harvard referencing guidelines can be found here. Please follow the URL. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. I appreciate that it was very fast. That was deliberate so that it reduces your screen time. Thank you for your patience, and I encourage you to visit studyskills.southwales.ac.uk for further information. This bite-sized workshop was brought to you by the Student Development and Study Skills Service. Please visit our website for handouts and guides. Information about our service is also available on our website. To book an appointment online or attend a workshop or use the Ask a Tutor service, please visit studyskills.southwales.ac.uk.